To begin with, the history of my family is incredibly tragic. A serious car accident involving my parents took place when I was still quite young, and from the injuries he sustained, my dad passed away in the hospital. My mom was left with lasting injuries that continue to affect her to this day, making walking a difficult task for her. The house that my dad left behind became the place where my mom and I would live for many years to come. Eventually, around the time I turned 10, my mom started seeing someone new, which meant she'd be out of the house quite frequently. During these periods, my Uncle Steve would often stay over for days at a time, and over time, I grew really close to him. For a long while, he served as my babysitter of sorts. He was always the cool uncle. Twa ham music, Troy in the yard, he'd play catch with me. Our pets would be taken care of by him. He'd take me to the movies, stuff, music like that. Things that any kid needs. Unfortunately, these were memories I never got to form with my dad. As I got older and the years went on, my mom married her second husband, and less would my Uncle Steve come around. By the time I reached 16, there was a stretch where he simply didn't come over for months, and I heard nothing from him. At this point, my mom was comfortable enough to leave me home alone, so I didn't question it too much, and as a teenager, having the house to myself was always nice. A couple nights a week, my mom would be home for dinner, but for the most part, she lived with her husband. Chorsham music. What happened to my Uncle Steve was something my mom was always very vague about. I had my suspicions, though, that he was either sick or dead. It may sound strange that something like that would be hidden from me by my mom, but if you ever met her, you'd understand instantly. Because of everything she went through, I think music, it made her a much more compassionate person, someone who doesn't want to cause another person any kind of stress or grief. By the time I turned 18, I was legally an adult, and basically the house same music was mine. Occasionally my mom would visit, but she and her husband had already gotten themselves another house together. You can imagine that as an 18-year-old guy with a house all to himself, I wasn't complaining. Yes, late nights with friends would happen. Yes, girls would come over. And yes, for days at a time, I'd often not pick things up off of music the floor. I would miss my Uncle Steve, though as the father figure I grew up with was him. And there were times when being in such a big empty house by myself at such a young age was kind of lonely and depressing. Often I would numb this feeling by, I guess, doing the things I just mentioned. Having girls over and late nights with friends. The only other life in the house really was my dog Jojo, who I still had. An Australian Shepherd, and at the time of this story, he was 13 years old. He was an old man. Always he slept by my side in bed. But one night in January, I remember this because the Christmas tree was still up. I woke up and Jojo wasn't in bed. Thinking he was somewhere downstairs and had to go to the bathroom, I got up. As I walked down the stairs, I called his name. I didn't hear him. So, to the kitchen I walked where the basement stairs and back door were, and in the dark, I saw him. Intently down the basement stairs, he was staring. Because it was a pain to close, I usually left that door open. Only when he turned his head to look at me for a second did he move. But then right back down the stairs he looked. To the edge of the stairs I stepped, and then at Jojo I looked and said, "What is it, boy?" Just a bit his tail started wagging for a second. Then stiff again it went. The light in the basement I flicked on, and down the stairs I looked. Jojo inched closer, but he didn't bark. A cold shiver ran down me as down into the basement I looked. The basement music is the worst place of all for your dog to stare down like this. The light I turned off, and by the collar I grabbed Jojo to bring him upstairs. So he couldn't leave again. I shut the door. Was I creeped out? Yes, a little. For him, it was unusual behavior. Mainly I was asking myself what he could have heard. I tried to go back to sleep. At this point, though, my mind was kind of racing, and it didn't help that every few minutes or so, I would hear high music and feel the vibration on the bed as Jojo would look up at the doorway, as if still hearing something from downstairs. I decided I would investigate. A mama's boy I wasn't going to be, texting my mom at whatever off hour in the night it was to tell her I'm scared. Part of becoming a man early on is not having a father figure in the house when you're young. Downstairs again I went, and by the time I was at the bottom, I heard Jojo walking down following me. Straight for the basement door again Jojo went, then caught up to me. Then in the same position as last time he stopped. Alongside him I stopped, and down the stairs to the darkness I looked again. I can't believe I did this, but down the stairs I called, saying, "Is someone there?" When there was no response, the light I flicked on. Down the steps I started walking, each one creaking beneath me. Those old steps I hated. Until you were about halfway down the stairs, you couldn't see into the basement as the ceiling was low. On maybe the third step I was when I heard the voice. My uncle's voice it was. Right away I knew it, all these years later. From somewhere in the basement, my uncle's voice was saying my name, only weak it sounded, like he was injured. Down to the basement I ran as my heart dropped out of me. At the bottom I got, and it was just an empty basement. "Uncle Steve," I called out. Still at the top of the stairs, Jojo was looking down at me. Down he didn't want to come. Further into the basement I walked, and nobody was there. 100 beats per minute my heart was beating at this moment. Behind the couch I peeked, and even behind the TV. Nowhere else for anyone to be was there besides the laundry room, which was in the corner. One look into the corner I took, and on the other side of the door I thought I heard the slightest sound. That's when something just came over my entire body, where like a little kid I had to sprint upstairs and get out of there. To the top step I got, and the light I didn't even shut. Just to close the basement door and then run upstairs I struggled. Poor old Jojo barked. The first barks I'd heard from him in months. As fast as he could, he followed behind us upstairs I went. The first thing I did was lock us in my room. Then over and over I called my mom until she picked up, whisper screaming into the phone I was telling her someone's down in the basement, and it sounded just like Uncle Steve. In fact, I knew it was Uncle Steve. That Jojo was at the basement door when I woke up after he obviously heard something too, I told her. Surprisingly calm my mom was, and she just let me finish. When I finished, in panic or anything for her to say something, I waited. But in a gentle, calm voice, she just said that I probably just woke up from a bad dream. I doubled down and swore to her that someone was down there. Even Jojo knew it. If I would just make that up, I asked her if she thought. This is where she paused for a second, and it's because this was the moment she decided to tell me the truth. That years ago my Uncle Steve got sick with cancer and died. And that's why he stopped coming over. Before she could finish her explanation, I told her it's not possible. Right now he's down in the basement. She then stopped me and said, "Listen to me. If someone's in the basement, right now you need to call the cops." So that's what I did. I hung up, dialed 911, and told them of a break-in. In my bedroom, Jojo, and I waited until there was a knock at the front door, followed by the doorbell. Downstairs I ran to let them in, and eagerly to the basement I pointed them. Still basically jammed shut like I left it, the basement door was. Up there they told me to wait, but I didn't listen. Down with them I insisted on going. As we went down, everything I reenacted, what I heard, when, and where. Then around where I looked I showed them, and then clear as throat to the one spot I didn't check I pointed. The laundry room where I heard the sound. To open the door they went, and the light switch I showed them. When the light turned on, no one was inside. How it always looked, the laundry room looked. In any secret crevices or behind the machines, no one was hiding, nothing. As void of people as could be before we came in it was. Looking crazy right about now, I knew I was. Back upstairs we went, and a little search of the first floor as well they did, then the upstairs. As clear as it could be, the house was. No one was there. At least pretty level-headed and not demeaning about it they were, even though probably a whack job they thought I was. They left, and back upstairs I went to call my mom again. Right away she picked up, and this is where she finished explaining. Years ago my Uncle Steve died, but tell me she didn't wanna, because she knew I suffered enough loss and couldn't bring herself to tell me. So, like my uncle kind of disappeared, she just played it off, which I yelled at her was infinitely worse, but that also didn't explain my hearing his voice just now in the basement. I calmed down, and then into the phone I said, "Mom, I'm scared." What I heard, she believed, I know it, and that scared me even more. That everything would be all right, she tried to convince me, and that my brain was playing tricks on me. I pretended to agree. We hung up, and close to me I pulled Jojo. The only thing keeping me from freaking out of my skin that night was him. For another few hours I didn't fall asleep. For a whole week after that, hell was life in that house. Anywhere near that basement door I couldn't go. At it anymore, Jojo wouldn't stare, but still haunting it was. All real it was because Jojo was reacting to something. I know. Had JoJo not been there as a late-night hallucination, or mind tricks, I could have played it off, but no. Down there, someone or something was something that had my uncle's voice. Just a year later, my mom sold that house. When I was 24, this happened, and by myself, I was renting the upstairs of an old house. Technically an apartment, it wasn't. More like its own little living space the second floor had been turned into years ago. A bedroom, bathroom, tiny kitchen, and a living room there was. Out of state the landlord lived, so almost never did I see him. For months the first floor was empty, and had been because supposedly he was renovating it before renting it out again. That part always made me a little uneasy, because every night it meant I was sleeping above a completely dark, empty floor of the house. Still, cheap the rent was, and dramatic I told myself I was being. For the first few weeks, nothing happened. Then one night around 100 in the morning, while in bed I was doom scrolling. What sounded like a single footstep directly below me I heard. Chorching music chore so clear it was that I actually froze and waited for another one. A few seconds later, another I heard. Exactly like someone slowly walking through the first floor living room it sounded. Up in bed I sat and just listened. Maybe it was the house settling, I remember thinking, but that it didn't sound like. Usually old house noises had more of a creak or a pop to them. Heavier, this sounded like actual weight pressing on floorboards. For a long time I stayed still, then finally convinced myself it had to be nothing. The next day on my way out I checked the first floor. Locked it was. Even I opened it and looked inside. Empty and dusty the place was, with no furniture except for an old broken table in one room. Stupid for being unsettled I felt. The next night nothing happened. The night after that, again it happened. This time around 12:30 it started. The same thing it was. Slow footsteps below me. 3 or 4 at a time, then silence, then a few more. Maybe 2 minutes it lasted. My TV I muted, and in the middle of my living room I stood listening down through the floor. There had to be an explanation, I kept telling myself. Maybe an animal got in. Maybe pipes somehow sounded like that in this house. But deep down, Music knew it sounded like a person moving around. About it I texted my friend Scott, and a joke he made that the downstairs tenant had finally moved in. Over the next week it kept happening. Always late at night it was, and always from downstairs. Sometimes footsteps it was, but once like a cabinet door shutting it sounded. That was the first time I got genuinely scared enough to call the landlord. Chain music annoyed more than concerned he sounded. No one had keys except him and me, he said, and out of state he was. Old homes make weird noises, he told me, and said if really nervous I was, the police I could call, but any reason to he didn't think there was. That response actually made me more uncomfortable, because now, like if something was wrong on my own, I felt. One Friday night, out later than usual I was and didn't get home until almost 200. The second I stepped into my upstairs apartment, off something felt. How else to explain it, I don't know. Nothing looked different and the lights were off like I'd left them, but different something felt. For a second I stood listening and everything was quiet. But then directly below me, a thud I heard, like something had bumped into a wall or a piece of furniture downstairs, it sounded. So fast I backed up I almost tripped on the rug. Just standing there staring at the floor I remember, like I could somehow see through it. Then more footsteps came. Immediately I left, and in my car with the doors locked I sat. That time I actually called the police. 2 officers came, and the whole first floor and outside of the house they checked. Nothing they found. No sign of forced entry and no one inside. One of them said. Polite about it he was, but I could tell they both thawed over house noises I had gotten worked up. For the next few days, maybe right they were, I kept thinking. Then little things I started noticing. Once I came home from work, and by maybe an inch the first floor door was opened. After the police were there, I knew I closed it. Another time, cigarette smoke outside the side of the house, near one of the downstairs windows I smelled. I don't smoke, and neither do any of my nearby neighbors, at least not from what I knew. Then one night again I heard the footsteps. Only this time directly beneath my bedroom they stopped. Lying in bed I was, and like whoever it was standing still in the room below me it sounded. My breath I held and listened. After maybe 10 seconds, a very light tapping sound I heard. 3 taps, then silence. The feeling going through my body at that point I can't explain. Like I was being watched in that moment it felt, even though logically that made no sense. My phone I grabbed and my friend I texted asking, if I could come stay at his place. While waiting for him to answer, I heard the tapping. 3 more taps in the same spot. Without even changing clothes, I left. The next day, back with me, my friend came because alone there I didn't want to be. The whole place we checked, and again, nothing we found. But went to the downstairs kitchen we got. Near one of the lower cabinets he crouched, and he music said, "What is that?" Way in the back under the cabinet toe kick, almost hidden. A cigarette butt jam there was, fresh it looked. That instantly made everything real for me. In there somebody had been. At that point, if I sounded paranoid, I stopped caring. Again, I called the landlord, and exactly what we found I told him. More concerned this time he seemed, and said he'd drive over the next day. Somewhere else that night I stayed. When the following afternoon he got there, he called me and said nothing obvious there was, but one of the back windows downstairs didn't lock right. Closed it looked, but from outside enough it could be forced up for a thin person to get in. Maybe somebody local had figured that out and was using the empty first floor. When no one was around, he said, sick that made me feel. If he was going to fix it right away, I asked him, and yes, he said, but already decided I was done. What really pushed me over the edge happened that same evening, when back one last time to get some clothes, and my laptop I went. Upstairs, I was stuffing things into a duffel bag when from below a sound I heard that I hadn't heard before. A cough it was, and no mistaking it there was. From the first floor hallway it came. For about 2 seconds, just standing there digesting what I just heard I was. Then the bag I grabbed, and so fast I ran out I left half my stuff there. Again from my car I called the cops. This time evidence someone had been coming in they actually found. Near the back window, fresh marks and dirt on the sill there were, and in a closet downstairs an old blanket I had never seen before they found. That weekend I moved out. Ever since then, any sound in the house at night hits me differently. Chris is my name, and when I was 22 this happened. In the upstairs of a mother-daughter house owned by our parents I was living, with my older brother Tom living downstairs. Pretty simple the setup was. One big open space for the living room, kitchen, and dining area my part of the house upstairs was. Then a hallway that led to the bathroom, a spare bedroom I used as a big walk-in closet, and music in my bedroom at the end. His own separate entrance downstairs Tom had, and a door that connected the 2 floors from inside we had. Well, it worked out because our own space we had, but still him music get to each other if needed we could. To Mexico with his fiancée Tom went 1 week, so the whole place to myself I had. Completely normal the night in question started. Music around 700 I got home, something on TV I threw, and dinner I started cooking. And music to our chicken and rice, something simple that didn't require much attention. In the background the TV was going, and normal everything was. Around the time I was cleaning up, from downstairs a noise I thought I heard. How to describe it I'm not sure other than just a basic thud. Like from the wall on the floor it could have came, I don't know. Just a thud. What I was doing I stopped and for a bit I listened. Something settling or something falling over slightly, I assumed it was. The normal assumptions. For a few days already the downstairs had been empty since Tom left. Still, random enough it felt that the TV I muted, and for a bit I stood there. Anything else I didn't hear, but the feeling of ignoring it I didn't like. So, to the door that led downstairs I went, which already open was, and down to check I went. The lights I turned on and through every room I walked. His living room, kitchen, bedroom, and bathroom. Exactly how it should everything looked. So back upstairs I went, finished cleaning, put everything away, and then for a while on the couch I sat watching TV. After maybe an hour or so, tired I got, and to bed I decided to go. Long it didn't take for me to start drifting off. Then, out of the blue from the living room music started playing. Loud enough to instantly wake me up it was. A second it took me to even process what I was hearing. Chorka Musica Torch from my Amazon Alexa on the counter in the kitchen area was coming. Some kind of slow instrumental song I had never heard before the song itself was. A sort of dark vibe to it had. From my bed a couple times I yelled, "Alexa, stop," but respond it didn't. More annoyed than anything I got, and out of bed I got. Into the hallway I went, and "Alexa, stop." Louder I said. Right away the music shut off. For a second at it I looked, pretty much knowing likely just a glitch it was. Back into my room I went, and back into bed I got. A few minutes later, just as starting to fall asleep again, from the Alexa I heard, sorry, I didn't quite get that, which why I'm having trouble understanding. Sure. Again, I got up. Into the living room I walked, and from the wall completely I unplugged it. That would be the end of it, I remember thinking. Clearly glitching out the thing was that confirmed. Back to my room I went, and this time pretty quickly I fell asleep. How much time passed, I don't know, but suddenly to loud music again I woke up. A second it took me to even understand what was happening, because still half asleep I was. Then it hit me. From the living room again the music was coming. Immediately out of bed I shot, because unplugging the Alexa I remembered. On it should have been there was no way. Slower this time down the hallway I walked. What I was expecting to see I didn't know, but hey, music very uncomfortable now I felt. Alexa, stop. I called out as closer I got, and instantly the music shut off. Then at the counter I looked. Back into the wall the Alexa was plugged. Just standing there staring at it for a few seconds I was. You would too if in the same situation you were. Without a doubt I knew I unplugged it, unless sleepwalked and plugged it back, and I did. The cord out myself I remember pulling. No doubt about that there was. That's when in your stomach that feeling that something's really wrong hit me. Anything else I didn't check because too scared I was. Straight back to my room I turned and went, and the door I locked. Thank God a lock it had. A chair over to the door I pulled so I could sit and listen for anything on the other side. Anything at first I didn't hear. Completely quiet everything was. Like that for probably 10 minutes I stayed with my ear up on the door. Then something from out in the living room I heard that I will never forget. A whisper it was. Quiet but clear enough to understand what it was. Alexa, play, it said. And then something I couldn't make out. Numb my entire body went. Like all the weight dropped out of me at once it was. Before I could react, the Alexa responded, and from the living room music started blasting again. That kind of dreadful fear of music before I don't think I've ever felt. My phone I grabbed and 911 I called, but instead of being quiet about it, just started yelling that 911 I was calling and telling whoever was out there to get the F out I did. Why I did that I don't know. Just panicked I think. 22 scared and defenseless I was. Getting this person arrested wasn't my first priority, rather just getting them out. So loud the music was that anything else I couldn't hear. Still out there, if the person was or not, I had no idea. The operator answered and someone was in my house, I told them. When the song finally ended, from inside my room, Alexa, stop. Again I yelled. It worked. A few minutes later the cops showed up. In my room I stayed until inside they were and my name calling. When out I came, everything as best I could I explained. The entire upstairs they checked, and then downstairs too they went. After a few minutes, back they came and said no one in the house there was. Good or bad, I don't know if that made me feel. Good on one hand that the danger was gone, bad on the other that away they got. One of them told me that wide open my front door was when they got there. Without a doubt locked that front door was, at the very least, closed. Through there whoever it was had left, but how they got in it didn't explain. Eventually they left after telling me to call again if anything else happened. The front door I locked, the door to the downstairs I locked, and much the rest of that night I didn't sleep. The next day, about something I couldn't stop thinking. For days the downstairs apartment had been empty while Tom was gone. A part of me that couldn't shake the idea that down there someone might have been staying and just came upstairs that night to harass me and scare me there was. That thought more than anything else that actually happened bothered me. So, at a friend's place the next night I stayed. When 2 days later Tom got back, everything I had already told him. Through both parts of the house again we went, and anything obvious missing or out of place we didn't find. Only because I showed him proof of the police having come there my brother believed me. Otherwise, a joke to scare him he'd have thought it was. The first thing we did was around the house install cameras, front, back, music, and inside by both doors. After that, nothing like that happened. Eventually, our own apartment us get our parents made so that house out for extra income they could rent. In a weird way, happy to get out of there I was, because when something like this happens, with you it sticks and mentally attached to that place where it happened it becomes.